early on in the play section, you know, I love the fact that there was like an Egyptian bead that's from the 1550 BC, and then above it is like a TARDIS box from like the 80s. And I thought I like that, and it brings everything together. So people, like young kids, might be like, I don't want to look at old stuff. And it's,
no, it will terrify the anally attentive, this, isn't it? Because you look at these cases and you
but
can't
it is
work
color
out
coded.
why. Yes,
and as someone who organised my DVDs in a colour code, it was actually aesthetically, very aesthetically pleasing. Can't find anything, but I love the way it looks.
What about that design section, which is aimed for sort of slightly older children, 11 to 14, I think? Yeah. And it's very right on. I mean, it is clearly a section that says your job as a child or an older child is to worry about the world and worry about whether it's fair and worry about the environment and so on. They've even got a little section which tells you how to make your own Extinction Rebellion in one case.
I think it is, you know, as a mother of an 11-year-old, I think it is difficult to appeal to that age without seeing a bit like, we're trying to be down with the kids here, you know, here's a bit about digital technology. Hey, Jordan Peele, do you know he did this thing about fake news and all this kind of stuff? But I think they do it just about right, and there aren't many screens actually set in that section, and they're very judiciously used. There's a really good split screen where they had someone demonstrating pottery and someone making pastry, and how they were juxtaposed made you think, oh, it's all about making and so on.
There is this nice sense as well of children. Where children have formed their own stories.
I think, you know, it's especially diversity of it, and you know, we could look at some what happened like games on STEM and how influential you see it, you can be it.
Place Brackets Village, and it is just a room full of beautifully lit up dollhouses without any furniture in, because she explains you can stacked up like doll's house on doll's house. When I was in there, an 8-year-old came in and pointed at one and went, I used to have one like that, and I thought, my goodness, toy nostalgia starts already these days.
And that's partly what it's about, isn't it? Okay, well, the Young V&A opens its doors this Saturday in East Green. And we have time for cultural clips. Marishka, what's yours?
I'm going to continue the 1980s retro theme from Indiana Jones and pick a documentary about Wham, which is out on Netflix next week, and it was unlike any rock documentary I've ever seen. It suggests that being a pop star was actually really fun. They had a blast. And it's a beautiful I mean, we all know about Wham, really. There's not much new here, but it's very well edited. It's narrated essentially by the boys from old documentary footage. But it's a portrait of a friendship, and it's just bouncy and fun as Wham were.
And lots of music.
Lots of music. Astonishing amount of hits that they did. It's like watching Wake You Up Before You Go for 2 hours. It's wonderful.
Hannah.
Well, the complete opposite of that. Brian Lee Macabre film is Ben Wheatley's Down Terrace, who watched this week as it's going to be screening on Monday at the Ritzy in Brixton. And he's going to be there, so if you're about, come down. But I love it because I think going back to where filmmakers start, and obviously we know where Ben Wheatley started.
It's sort of, for people who don't know, kind of folk horror, but with elements of psychedelia and very strange filmmaking.
And also every film feels completely different. But this one, the early one, it's bright and set, kind of gangster. You know, you think it's going to be one thing and it turns out to something totally different. It's kind of very shocking, and I just think it's really great to see where that guy started and see how the freedom of making your first film, like you're just going to go up to 11. You love the film.
Yeah, it's one of the best British babies, I think.
I mean, if you want to see it, you've got to go to the Brits.
Yeah, you have to be there.
That's why Hannah's Lodge's first film club. It's always brilliant screenings with first films by directors.
Okay, well, my cultural pick, I'm reading at the moment Mark O'Connell's A Thread of Violence, which is a book about a very notorious murder in Dublin committed by some strange character called Malcolm MacArthur, who had money, thought of himself as an intellectual, committed these terribly brutal, but sort of slightly oddly dispassionate murders. And it's very good about that, but it's also a brilliant book about why writers want to write about murder and what draws them and all of the ethical compromises that they find. Because he's now out of prison and Mark O'Connor sees him in Dublin, becomes slightly obsessed and then meets him and has these conversations, and it gets more and more complicated, you know, what you owe a subject. And
is it kind of like in cold blood?
It is a bit, there's an element of that, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Larushka Ivanzadeh and Hannah Freeman. That is it for tonight. Next week on Front Row, an interview with the playwright Kwame Kwei-Armah about his new play Beneath This Place, and Samira will also be talking to Dolly Parton, who, among other things, shares the story behind the writing of one of her most famous lyrics.
That line, I have to honestly say that I've had more people talk about that. And that was one of those lines when it came to you go, yes, thank you. You know, because it's like, I was just saying, you know, I tumble out of bed. I was just thinking what you do when you wake up in the morning, you tumble out of bed and you stumble to the kitchen. And that came off of the kitchen. I thought, what in the world am I going to rhyme the kitchen with? And when I do next, I pour myself coffee. Pour myself a cup of ambition. I thought, yes! And I was so excited when I came up with that line. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
Much more from Dolly on Monday. And tomorrow night on Add to Playlist, the violinist and composer Anna Phoebe and the pianist and composer Neil Brand will join Keris Matthews and Jeffrey Burlison. Until then, good night.